American History Crash Course, Episode 5. Britain blocks our money-making game. Mess with our cash, and we're gonna raise hell. In this episode, we're talking about why those British colonies in North America turned on Britain. I mean, they're all part of the same country. Where'd all this bad blood come from? So back in the 17th century, when the British came to North America, they set up a bunch of colonies. These colonies were all pretty different from each other. Some folks came looking for gold. Didn't find any, so they got into farming instead, like Virginia. Some were all about religious freedom, wanted to build their ideal society, sitting by the harbor running the triangle trade, like Massachusetts. Some couldn't stand religious persecution, wanted separation of church and state, chasing religious liberty, like Rhode Island. Some were set up as safe havens for Catholics, like Maryland. Some were grabbed from the Dutch, like New York. Some were dumping grounds for British debtors who couldn't pay up, while also having these convicts block the Spanish down south, like Georgia and so on. 13 in total, all kinds of different setups. But no matter what each colony's deal was, this was all British Empire territory. Everyone had to pay the king. Back then, Britain's attitude toward these colonies was, just send money, don't bother me, meaning as long as you're not causing trouble or rebelling, not making problems for me, and paying what you owe on schedule. I won't manage the details. Y'all do whatever you want. To collect that money, Britain made a ton of rules. All those raw materials you're producing, tobacco, cotton, sugar, you gotta sell it all to Britain. And anything you need in the colonies, whether it's clothes, shoes, tools, pots and pans, clocks, instruments, whatever, you gotta buy it from Britain. Cheap raw material supplier and captive market for goods. That's your job as a colony. What's that? You want to sell raw materials to someone else? Or you want to manufacture stuff yourself? Absolutely not. You're just a colony. You think you get to eat meat? Be grateful you're getting soup. With this, Britain eats meat, colonies drink soup arrangement. People weren't exactly happy about it, but they didn't dare openly oppose it. At most, it was find ways around the rules. Do some smuggling on the side, and not a small amount either. I mean, Britain's way over there, they can't control everything. Plus, a lot of these colonial governors were appointed by the British king, and didn't always look out for the colony's interests. Like in Virginia, land speculation was super profitable. You'd kick out the Native Americans, sell the land to new arrivals. Lots of people made bank. But if you keep doing this, the Native Americans fight back. Constant warfare, which seriously disrupted peaceful colonial life and was killing everyone's profits. So the colonists strongly demanded they get tougher on the Native Americans. But Virginia's governor at the time, Berkeley, wasn't in any rush. This North American land belongs to our king anyway, but all you guys are making the money off it. You're raking in all this cash and not giving me any. Why should I care? But the real reason was, the governor had his own money-making scheme. This guy was trading furs with the Native Americans, selling them back to Europe for huge profits. If they picked a fight with the natives, that gravy train would end. So Governor Berkeley had zero interest in going after the Native Americans. This governor wouldn't do his job, seriously killing everyone's profits. Eventually, this guy named Bacon lost it. If the governor won't handle it, we'll do it ourselves. He raised his own force and went after the Native Americans. The governor was like, excuse me? You think I can't control you people? So he sent troops to shut it down. Bacon was furious. What kind of government is this? Fighting their own people instead of the natives? Let's revolt! So Bacon led his forces against the government troops. Burned down government buildings, churches, warehouses, everything. The governor ran off too. This is known in history as Bacon's Rebellion. But just over 2 months into the uprising, Bacon died of disease. The whole thing fell apart, and the rebellion failed. If you really think about it, this was tension between the colonies and Britain. Since the governor was appointed by Britain, back then, conflicts between colonial governors and colonial assemblies were super common. The assembly would finally decide something, and the governor would just veto it. When the governor wanted to collect taxes for the king, the assembly wouldn't cooperate. Basically, the conflict was constant, impossible to resolve, went on for decades without a break. The biggest issue in all these conflicts was land. All 13 North American colonies were on the East Coast. If they wanted to develop and make serious money, they had to expand westward. But Britain wasn't too excited about expansion. Why expand? If you expand, you'll have to fight the Native Americans. Then I'd have to send troops, and that would leave Europe vulnerable. Plus, why do you need to be so big? Just stay by the coast and supply me with raw materials. You're already giving me grief when you're small. If you get bigger, I definitely can't control you. The colonists could see this golden road to wealth, but Britain just wouldn't let them take it. So frustrating. Like America's founding father, George Washington, who was a landowner at the time, making his fortune off land. He was especially ticked off. You can actually understand Britain's position, though. Their goal at the time was world dominance, and all their rivals were in Europe, especially France. These two were old enemies, fought for centuries. Both wanted to be top dog. Neither would back down. While Britain was grabbing colonies all over the world, France wasn't sitting idle either. They also had territory in North America, mainly out west and up north. Pretty big area, but not many people. Because France and Britain had different colonial strategies. The British did mass migration, development bringing whole families. The French mainly traded furs, buying from Native Americans, then selling to Europe for profit. You'd think they could each do their own thing without conflict. But these two were old enemies. Your success threatens my dominance. Like France built a bunch of forts in North America, specifically to limit British expansion. One big fort was right on Virginia's border, same place where Bacon's rebellion happened. Years had passed. Virginia had a new governor. This governor wasn't trading furs anymore. He was making money off land too. But now the French were right there on the border. How could they expand and make money? So he wanted to drive out the French, and gave this task to Washington. At the time, Washington was a militia lieutenant colonel, not regular army, and a landowner himself. So he was all about expansion, led his troops and headed out. Ended up getting his butt kicked. When word got back to Britain, they reacted pretty strongly. What, you're causing trouble for me again? Didn't we tell you not to mess with the natives? And now you're going after France. And so war broke out. Europe was pretty wild back then. All the countries had beef with each other. They all picked sides and started fighting. Lasted 7 years. Known as the 7 Years' War. The 7 Years' War was mainly Britain versus France. But tons of countries got involved all over the world. Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, North America, battles everywhere. You could call it World War 0.5. Let's focus on what happened in North America. Britain sent over a bunch of regular troops, and the colonies organized militia to help out. You'd think fighting side by side as allies, they'd grow closer. But after the war ended, their relationship totally fell apart. Why? For one, these British regulars were super arrogant, looked down on these North American hicks. Plus, they figured we came all this way to fight your war. Food, drinks, housing. You better take care of us. You've got the nerve to charge us for this stuff? But the North American colonists didn't see it that way. Britain declared this war. We didn't want to fight it. We're helping you fight, bleeding and sweating. But not only do you look down on us, you're taking advantage of us. This is way too much. The two sides saw things completely differently. So after 7 years of fighting, not only weren't they allies, the resentment just kept building. Even though the troops weren't united, Britain's strength was still solid. They managed to beat France and took a bunch of French territory in North America. But after all those years of war, Britain burned through its money. Treasury was empty. Where to get more cash? Where else? The North American colonies, obviously. Britain figured we fought this war for you North Americans. If you don't pay, who will? Also, during the war, these North Americans weren't helpful at all. Some were even supplying the French. We gave you way too much freedom. Time to change our North American policy. Can't be like before. Gotta tighten things up. In 1763, Britain issued a proclamation forbidding North American colonies from expanding westward. The French are gone anyway, so stop provoking the Native Americans. Settle down, stop costing me money. In 1764 came the Sugar Act. Raised tariffs a bit, not much, but you absolutely have to stop smuggling. 1765, the Stamp Act. All printed materials. Newspapers, contracts, marriage licenses, playing cards, whatever. All need a little stamp, which you gotta pay for, of course. The colonists were already holding grudges. They were like balloons ready to pop, and Britain kept poking them. Eventually, they exploded. We absolutely will not pay this stamp tax. This isn't about the money. All this stuff was decided by your British Parliament. But in your Parliament, we don't have a single North American representative. No representation, no taxation. Everyone was pretty fired up. Some even took to the streets, ran off the British tax collectors. Britain was like, why such a huge reaction? This no representation, no taxation thing? Parliament representatives aren't chosen by region anyway. Even in Britain itself, not every region has a representative. Britain thought North Americans were too high maintenance. Fine. We'll cancel the Stamp Act. But then they turned around and created the Townshend Acts. Tea, glass, paper all got taxed. This money would pay the colonial governors' salaries, so they wouldn't be controlled by you. On top of that, Britain sent more troops over to control the situation. All these veterans from the war who needed jobs got shipped to North America. Britain said they were there to protect you, and you're paying for it. The colonists saw this as not only taking our money, but also our rights. Even more pissed off, cursing at British soldiers on sight. The people in Boston were especially heated, cornered a group of British soldiers, cursing and throwing rocks. These British soldiers were thinking these North American hicks are way too savage, got nowhere to retreat. If we don't shoot now, we'll lose control. So bung bung bung. Killed 3 on the spot, 2 critically wounded. Those 2 died later too. Some smart colonists jumped on this opportunity, spreading propaganda like crazy. This is the Boston Massacre! British troops massacring innocent, unarmed civilians. The colonial people got even more heated. Everyone was furious. absolutely livid. Britain looked down on the North American colonies even more. These are all troublemakers. Same colonies. But look at India. They never caused trouble, just send money. But at the time, the East India Company in India was in trouble. They had a huge stockpile of tea. Couldn't sell it, about to go bankrupt. Britain looked at India and North America. One's an obedient, well-behaved kid who just makes money. The other's a troublemaker who points fingers and curses at me. Of course you'd side with the good kid. In 1773, Britain passed the Tea Act, giving the entire North American tea market to the East India Company. This screwed over all the North American tea dealers. Before, everyone was doing fine smuggling tea. Now, East India Company tea was being shipped in by the boatload. Super cheap, so their own tea couldn't sell. You're cutting off our income. We're not letting you get away with this. So on one night in December 1773, a bunch of Bostonians rushed onto East India Company ships and dumped over 300 chests of tea into the harbor. These guys were afraid of getting recognized, so they dressed up as Native Americans. This is the famous Boston Tea Party. This immediately caused a sensation. North Americans were applauding. The British king was pounding his fist. The British king at the time was George III. He figured if he didn't get tough, these people would walk all over him. So Britain passed several acts all at once. Shut down Boston Harbor. Revoke Massachusetts' self-governance. Send in more troops. Plus, if my people over there get in trouble, they'll be tried back in Britain. You North Americans have no jurisdiction. Each one of these was totally unacceptable. The North American colonists called these acts the Intolerable Acts. Now the North American colonies and Britain had basically fallen out. Everyone figured it was time to unite and figure out a strategy. So in September 1774, representatives from each colony met in Philadelphia. This was the First Continental Congress. At the meeting, everyone quickly got on the same page. They had to resist Britain to the end. But nobody was talking about independence. Everyone just wanted their rights and money back. Becoming a separate country wasn't necessary. But shortly after the meeting ended, trouble started. Gunfire rang out near Boston at Lexington. Those gunshots marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War.